Chapter 8. Beauty and a Thug. She's so beautiful. He's a thug. They're so perfect. They're in love. Jaheen. I met Kevin back in the spring of 1994 at Skate 22 in Union, New Jersey. He was there with Mr. C, a local DJ who was spinning at the rink, which doubled back then as a happening night spot. Big Daddy Kane was performing that night, and I was there on an appearance for Hot 97. Kevin was there with a bunch of his Brooklyn dudes promoting some party or something. I didn't really notice him at first. I was surrounded by my entourage, Skeletor and my security Bulge, and a few other guys. And while they would never try and block my flirting, they did provide me with a certain amount of insulation from the world. But I was approached by one of Kevin's boys, who was still in our cipher. He said, "You are always talking about roughnecks on the radio. You see that guy over there? That's the man you've been describing." At the time, MC Light's Roughneck song was very popular, and every time I played it, I would chime in about wanting a roughneck for myself. Kevin's boy apparently was an avid listener and knew this. "Yeah, he wants to know when you two can hook up and get your Pathfinders dirty together," said Kevin's boy. I thought that was so hot because you know guys are so into keeping their cars clean. I was impressed, and he was looking every bit the part, so I took the number. But it was no biggie because I had taken numbers before. I was just never big on callbacks and dating. I was so protective of my cipher and so protective of the shit I was into that I didn't really want anyone outside of it too close to me. I didn't want anyone to know the truth, that I was really a scared little girl from the suburbs with an ugly secret. The way Kevin approached me was intriguing, though. It was bold without being in my face, and I liked that. I later found out he did it that way because he did not want to be publicly turned down by the big mouth bitch from the radio, as he knew me. He had heard me talk about wanting a thug, and I guess he was testing the waters to see if I was really looking for a real roughneck or just talking shit. But just in case I didn't want one, he didn't want to play himself either. I thought that was a nice way to go about it. I collected my evening's pay and left the skating rink to get to my next date with the white lady. I smiled and waved goodbye to Kevin with my fingers, but I don't think then I had any intentions of calling him. The next day, I was at the station and about to take a break. I was cleaning out my bag in the studio between songs, looking for something to use for a quill. I had just gotten a package delivered from the Bronx dealer in my usual McDonald's bag with the fries on the top. I found a piece of a matchbook at the bottom of my pocketbook, which was always my favorite kind of quill because a straw was so dirty to me. I was always careful about what I used as quill. I always factored in someone going through the garbage. If you go through someone's garbage and you see a straw cut at a particular angle, you immediately know what's up. If you saw a matchbook bent, it could have been from someone picking their teeth. And I was always careful to rinse off my matchbooks before throwing them away because there would be residue. Above and beyond everything, paranoia had definitely set in and was very much a part of my getting high experience at that point. I had deep paranoia about everything, which comes with a 3 gram a day cocaine habit. Kevin's name and number were written on that piece of matchbook. As I was holding it and preparing to take my break, I paused. I don't know why. There certainly wasn't anything different about Kevin because I had not even spoken to him. It was 3:30 in the afternoon. I recall clearly because it was right before the foreplay at 4. The foreplay at Hot 97 was a very busy time back then as opposed to right now, which is busy from the moment I hit the floor running at 2 o'clock. But back then, only the foreplay at 4 was really busy. So I usually took a little time for myself just before. Instead of going to the bathroom to start on my package, I said to myself, let me call this guy back. What the hell? I knew once I used this matchbook cover for my habit, this number would be lost forever. On April 8th, 1994, I paged Kevin. He called right back, and the first thing I noticed was his sexy, raspy voice. I told him who I was and said, look, I get off at 6 o'clock. You can meet me downstairs after my shift. If not, fine. We don't need a formal date for you to impress me. You don't need to go out and buy me flowers or anything. I certainly am not going to trick myself out for you either. He laughed. I like that. That was just typical Wendy. Even to this day, even sober, I don't have a lot of time to waste with people. And as far as telling him that, I wasn't going to trick myself out for him. That too was typical Wendy. I just wanted him to be prepared. What was I dialing up for? I bare my soul on the radio. And besides, I looked as cute as I ever did the night he met me, which isn't as cute as I doll myself up today, by the way. Back then, I was never one to draw attention to myself. Hell, I was already 5 feet 11 inches. That was attention enough. Wearing heels and all of that was definitely not part of my program, and it certainly would not have been a part of an outfit for a date. I've ultimately always felt that people should accept me as I am. And if they didn't, well, I had a package waiting for me at home. Hell, it might be in the bathroom in the middle of a date, which I really wasn't too interested in doing back then anyway. Being in a world of my own paranoia, I didn't want people coming up to me and saying, "Hi, Wendy." I might be sweating, or my jaw might be winding, or my eyes might be so glassy and big that I couldn't focus. I didn't need that kind of attention. I didn't need anyone peeping my little secret. But I called this Kevin guy anyway. And before he could tell me whether he was coming to meet me or not, I cut him off and told him, "I'm about to go into a stop set. Either you'll meet me in front of my job at 6 or you won't. Bye." When my shift was over, I came outside, and there he was standing outside his tricked out green Nissan Pathfinder. Mine was black and done up like a dude's truck with black tinted windows. It was parked down the block. I thought a lot about my safety after my divorce. So I got a car that would conceal me well. One that no one would think I'd be driving because it was very masculine looking. And I made sure to be as low key as possible because I never really had a man to hold me down. Not even my ex husband, who was a big body man, but was corny to the new ways of the hip hop streets. I've had a few boyfriends before him who were financially secure and could provide that, but none with the complete package. There was a doctor who had a couple of Porsches and a big house, and there was an aerospace engineer. They were real relationships where they would come home with me for Thanksgiving, and I never cheated on any man. That has never been my thing. It was always one man at a time. Those types of men I found really were not my type, but that seemed to be all I was dating. Even when I was in college, I had two serious boyfriends. One lived in Montclair, New Jersey, and came from a nice, prestigious family, and the other graduated from Boston University and was 11 years older than I was. He was a frat man. But who did I really want to date in college? The boys who lived in the projects behind my school. That's who I hung out with, smoked weed with, and had the best time with. Who was I really attracted to? The thugs. The thugs always made me feel protected and gave me respect. They always had fun and excitement with them, but I could never bring them home to my parents. Once I divorced Mr. X and had weathered the storm and basically told my family, "Look, fuck you, I'm getting a divorce and moving on." I bought my condo in Florida right on the beach. I renovated it, raised the ceiling, and domed it out. I bought all new furniture for it, and I never rented it out. That scored major points with the parents who saw that I could handle my business. They thought, through all of that, she survived, and we didn't lend her anything but emotional support. After going through after going through that, I was willing to come out of the closet with everything. Well, almost everything. I was certainly willing to let the world know of my love for the thugs. And here was one waiting for me at the end of my show, right on time. And even though I had told him not to do anything special, I noticed that he had on new clothes, a green Pele Pele outfit. I remember thinking it was the wrong color for his skin tone, which was the same complexion as mine. People our complexion shouldn't wear that pea soup shade of green. It makes us look real sallow. Aside from the color, his outfit fit him well. He looked good. He flashed me that smile that kind of cut through all that Brownsville thug action. It was the same smile that I noticed at the skating rink. Pearly whites, no gold caps, just bright. Oh, and his voice? Damn! I got in his Pathfinder finder and went to Brooklyn to close his shop. He owned a beauty parlor on Cortelyou Road. And on the drive over the Brooklyn Bridge, I knew I had the potential to fall in love with him. His smile, his personality. You know how attractive a thug is when he lets down his guard. I mean, he's still a thug, but there's something more there. I got out all of my obligatory questions that would eliminate him from serious contention. Do you have any kids? And are you currently in a relationship? And he answered them both correctly. No. He was 23 years old, younger than I was, and he wasn't cleaned up with all that baby's mama drama. How rare is that in this day and age? It was hard to believe. I went back to his apartment. It was a real mess. So much so that even after our dating became more serious, I never spent the night there. It was a real bachelor's pad, and there was no way no decent chick would spend any amount of time up in that piece. Yuck. I wouldn't stay there even if I brought some shower shoes and a big ass bottle of antiseptic. But you know what? It was his apartment. He wasn't living off his mama or some girl, and I loved that. He let me know that he had been on his own since he was a teenager. He had his own business, a car in his own place. He was a catch. His car was in his name. Yes, I checked. I looked in his glove compartment while he went to the store and found the registration. I had to do that because it seemed too good to be true. That's the only time I ever sneaked, but it was with good reason. I was thinking that I could really fall for this guy, and I don't need my feelings to be based on a lie. So if this car is registered to a woman, it better be his mother. By the time we finished closing up his business and going to his apartment, I felt safe enough to say I wanted to eat. And he asked me where I wanted to eat. And since I'm not a date drainer, I suggested Houlihan's in Weehawken, New Jersey. The food was not expensive. I saw the guy's apartment. He was a hardworking man, and I was not going to try to drain his pockets. Hey, where we were headed, there was plenty of time for that. Better yet, I thought he will fall so hard for me that eventually he will want to drain his pockets for me. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about time and energy, the important things. But on this date, I ordered a salad. This is the one time I did not keep it real because what I really wanted was the ribs, mashed potatoes, and a big dessert. The works. I was ready to tear down the house as far as food was concerned, especially after smoking that Brooklyn chocolate. But I had on a pair of tight Levi's and couldn't risk a blowout. At the time, I was the spokesperson for Macwear Clothing. Not a lot of people had a clothing contract back then, and I was getting a very healthy five figures to wear their clothes. Nowadays, celebrities sport clothes for their exposure. I was wearing a Macwear shirt loose because I had no boobs back then and a loose belly. I had on a pair of tight jeans though and some Timberlands. I looked cute. We sat and talked for a while, and I was starting to ask myself, where does this date go? Do we go back to my house or what? I drink Heinekens right out of the bottle with no glass because I was that type of chick. And I wasn't into the champagne yet. I wasn't an industry chick. I would go in, do my job, go home. I would make my appearances, collect my money, and go home. I didn't realize that the rest of the industry was drinking Cristal. See, I had this habit, and my habit didn't allow me to be around other people. When my job was over, I wanted to go home, close my apartment door, pull out my quill, and continue my very own private party. After we left Houlihan's, we went back to my place. I owned a condo in Florida, but was renting a beautiful prime duplex penthouse in Jersey City that cost me almost $3,000 a month. It had two bedrooms, three bathrooms, a washer and dryer, and a huge jacuzzi tub, lots of marble, and two balconies with unblocked views from the George Washington Bridge to the Brooklyn Bridge. I could see Kevin's eyes when he walked in. He was shocked. I guess he thought that the bitch from the radio made $25,000 a year like a school teacher. So, needless to say, he was impressed because he's a nigga, and most niggas go out and buy a Benz right away. So with me driving a Pathfinder and being so damn cheap, I guess he thought, oh, she's not really doing that well. But when he stepped into my place, all of those thoughts went out of the window. After he looked around, we settled in the living room and we talked the entire night. We didn't have sex, we just talked, smoked weed and drank Heinekens out of the bottle. After that first talk, he knew that my family was the most important thing to me and he could threaten me with telling them something. So while I was still doing drugs, I never mentioned it to him. That would remain a private matter between me and myself. And thank goodness he never asked or made any accusations because that would have been it. I would have had to tell him this relationship is officially over. Speaking of over, I was having a little fling with the security guard at the Gap. It was nothing serious, but I knew after my first date with Kevin that Mr. Gap had to go. I was never the kind of woman who was a player. I could have more than one man at a time. It was too much to juggle. And I certainly couldn't sleep with more than one man at a time. And I knew after that first date that this thing with Kevin could certainly go there. So I called Mr. Gap and respectfully told him, "We're over." He had a couple of t shirts at my house, and I packed them up and left them with the concierge at my building. It wasn't a funky breakup. And I didn't do him dirty because I believe if you do dirt, dirt comes back to you. I believe in karma. And I wasn't going to play Mr. Gap out like that by stringing him along. I liked Kevin so much that I took him home to meet my parents. That was 1994 in the summer when my family, which consists of my parents, my sister, my brother, and me, usually spent a lot of time together. This summer, we were at my sister's house. She was there with her husband and my brother. Didn't have a serious girlfriend at this point. And here I come with Kevin. We had been dating for about 4 months and I was in love. It seemed as though everything was going well for me. My career was on point, so much so that my parents really couldn't say shit to me about Kevin. Inside, I knew my family would eventually accept whoever I brought home, as long as he loved me and made me happy. At some point during the day, my mother got him alone, and I happened to walk in just when my mother was asking him, "Why are your pants so baggy?" He was offended. He handled it like a champ. He wasn't offended. He handled it like a champ. I had warned him about my family and they lived up to the billing. I didn't ask him to change or be on his best behavior. I didn't tell him what to wear. I didn't ask him to put on any hard sole shoes or pull up his pants. I figured if they were going to meet Kevin, they needed to meet Kevin, not some made up man faking it to impress them. Believe me, I was ready for a battle if it came to that. If anything, I tried to break him into my family. I didn't try and break them into him. And we ended up having a nice day. It turned out that my mother and I had a lot more in common than I knew. Before she met my father, she was dating boys from very well heeled New Jersey families. Her family was very excited about her getting clinked up with one of them. And then my father came along. They met on the beach. He was from Atlantic City. My mother's father, who I call Papa, protested up and down the street because my father was, not the right class. So coming there with Kevin, it was like they understood. They weren't as judgmental as I thought they would be. And most of all, I think from a father's perspective, he might have been a little relieved. When I tell my father I'm going to the Terror Dome nightclub and I'm just leaving at 11 o'clock at night, he calls me on my cell phone just to call. And I guess he realized the best time to catch me is at night. And he knows I will probably be there until 3 o'clock the next morning. And he asks, "Is Kevin with you?" And I tell him, "Yes." He feels okay about everything. In the end, he wants his little girl to be safe, and he could see with Kevin that would not be an issue. Having Kevin with me in my father's eyes is even better than having security, which makes the situation sound so dangerous. Kevin was accepted as part of the family. As we got more serious, it became a task for me to keep my dates with the white lady and Kevin. It became tough to juggle. I had to strategize. Since that first night, I saw Kevin every day. He would pick me up from work every day. I stopped smoking coke altogether. It was too sloppy. I only sniffed at work or wherever I could, but my habit had slowed down considerably. By this time, he had basically moved in. There was no official announcement that we were living together, and he still kept his apartment, but I wanted him at my place. I liked waking up next to him, and I damn sure wasn't spending the night at his place. He stayed with me, but it was very clear, very early, that he would not be approving of me having a habit. On one of our first nights, he talked to me about the streets and seeing what things like crack had done to people he knew, and he could not tolerate it. He talked about the death and destruction of friends and neighborhoods at the hands of coke and how too many people were locked up or killed behind it. My break from my habit wasn't cold turkey. I slowly weaned myself off the stuff to the point where one day I woke up and just didn't have the desire to do it anymore. There was something else filling my void, and I didn't have time, room, or energy for the white lady. I just stopped. There was no rehab, and thank God, no major breakdown. No arrests, no full blown bust at my job, no bad batches that put me in the emergency room. I just stopped. And I didn't pick up another bad habit like drinking excessively, but I continued to smoke weed. I had been smoking weed since the eighth grade, but I never smoked weed after doing coke. When I did smoke weed, I wanted my high to be pure, so I didn't want to drink alcohol or anything. At the point that I stopped using cocaine, I can say that I had a 4 gram a day habit, 4 days a week. Now the heads will know what that is. 4 grams is supposed to be shared among 4 people, or at the very least by two. And my sobriety opened the door to the next phase in our relationship, engagement. It was the summer of 1997, and I was hosting a party at a Manhattan nightclub, Mirage. Kevin was throwing the party, and SWV, Gina Thompson, with Missy Elliott performed. At some point during the night, Kevin had a DJ stop the party and called me to the stage. Kevin came on stage. There were some guys dressed in tuxedo shirts who dropped rose petals at my feet. Kevin got down on one knee and asked me to marry him, right there in the middle of the club with everyone watching. And all I could think was, oh my gosh. While the public engagement was romantic and nice, it even made the gossip section of the New York Daily News. Radio star Wendy Williams to marry entrepreneur Kevin Hunter. I really wasn't feeling the ghetto engagement. Let's not sugarcoat it with an engagement. Don't get me a ring. Get me a necklace or something. I didn't want to wear something that symbolizes something that is not really intended. And I made that clear. And Kevin assured me he intended to make me his wife. He didn't believe in marriage, but he knew if he was going to get married, I was that woman. At this point, though, I was not feeling marriage. I was still recovering from my first fiasco of a marriage, and I really wasn't looking forward to jumping back in that saddle. But I sure loved having Kevin around. He brought so much to the table. As soon as he came onto the scene, I didn't need security. Kevin handled all of that stuff. He told me, I don't know what kind of man you dated in the past, but I'm not having this. You're my woman, and I'm holding it down. I was delighted with that because at the end of the day, Wendy is still the little girl who wants to be taken care of and not financially. Start playing the pink music. I want to be taken care of physically and emotionally. I imagine even Oprah wants to be taken care of because at the end of the day, we are soft and we are pink. And even if we wear a hard exterior, we want a hug. We want someone to tell us we are pretty no matter how much we make. And we want a man to support us, not dog us. We want to be loved. We want to be in love. I was falling in love.